Make sure you don't miss a thing. Go to starzology.com/newsletter and sign up. Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hi, Alison. It's great to be here again.
So nice to have you. So this is once more one of our celebratory episodes.
Yes.
This is our 175th podcast episode. Can you believe it?
It's amazing.
It's amazing that we've got this far, that we've kept going, and honestly, there is still so much we have to say.
Yeah.
It's like the topic just won't stop coming at us, right?
Right.
So what we normally do for our listeners who don't know is every 25 episodes, we have a Q&A session. This is questions and answers. And these are questions that have come up in the interim between the last 25 episodes from clients and customers and people on YouTube and what have you, or messaging to us with their astrology questions. So we're going to address a few of those today and see if we can answer some of your burning astrology questions.
Yeah.
So Arwynne, do you have a first question to start with?
Yeah, I do. And this is a question from an aspiring astrologer asking questions about consulting.
Okay.
Basically, I mean, and this could apply, technically for anybody, anyone who's interested in reading charts and reading their own or other people's charts.
So what is an aspiring astrologer?
I mean, aren't we all aspiring?
Well, I think so.
Feel like
I think so.
Yeah.
We're not casually just looking at a chart and passing by. We're trying to get better, aren't we?
We are, yeah. And as soon as you start to really feel like you've kind of mastered it, maybe you think about like, oh, what sign are they? What sign? Yeah, and then you start asking people, what time are you born? And then it's a dead giveaway. And
never ends.
Next thing you know, you're collecting charts. And if you're like me, you just collect them for your own benefit. And if you're like Alison, you do other people's charts and make that a business. And it's a never-ending life thing.
So we've got a question from an aspiring astrologer.
We do, yes. And so this is a great question. What do you do when planets or placements in a chart seem to cancel each other out? How do you weigh the influence of competing when something seems to when you have two different sort of very, very meaningful kind of things that are seeming to be opposite in their meaning?
So I'm just immediately thinking, say you've got a strong Saturn and a strong Jupiter. So one's trying to contract, the other's trying to expand or something.
Right, yeah.
And really, you have to determine how well placed is that planet in the chart.
Yeah. Because
one will be definitely better placed than the other.
Right.
And
even if they're in mutual reception, they're going to make different.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to make different
aspects. Some of them will have hard aspects. Some of them will be most elevated. Some of them will be, I don't know, could join the sun or something.
Yeah.
And one of the two will always be better placed than the other.
Yeah.
And that is the planet that is more likely to be able to express itself than the other one.
Yeah. And as we talked about in our
recent episode
about the planetary complexes, you might want to go through that incredibly intricate exercise.
Yes.
If you find yourself looking at a chart and you really can't figure out, is Jupiter or Saturn stronger, and which one is the dominant planet in the chart.
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
Absolutely be dominant, because and it might even come down to where they're placed in a chart. Maybe one of them is in a Gauquelin sector, or one of them is in an angular house, and those are more powerful than the other houses. Yeah. Exactly.
So this is it. You've got to be able to weigh your planets properly, because then you actually, technically, you're unlikely to have competing themes, because one theme will dominate.
Yeah.
The prominent planet and its theme will dominate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another question, which seems a little bit similar, but might have a slightly different interpretation, is how do you work with conflicting messages between the sun, moon, and ascendant? Because those might be in, like in my chart, where they're just either conjunct or sextile each other.
Yes.
But not all people. Some people have them in opposition to each other. And that's if you find someone who has the sun and moon in opposition, like that's probably one of the first things you're going to be addressing is like,
yes,
tell me about your parents.
Well, again, but by the same token, you still have to weigh those planets. Right. Is the moon more important than the sun?
Yeah.
I mean, when it's an opposition, the moon it's a full moon.
Yeah.
The moon is dominating the night. Right. Is it a nighttime chart? Because then is the moon high in the sky? Because then it will definitely dominate, because it's challenging the sun.
Yeah. And this just brings, again, the importance of really digging into the chart and not just looking at those surface things and saying, oh, I see an opposition. This must be.
Well, this is it. I could have sun opposition moon. You could have sun opposition moon.
Yeah.
But if my moon's in Cancer and your sun's in Leo, we've got a different opposition.
Right.
So you do need to understand the planetary complex. Unfortunately, we've got to say that again, because it really comes down to understanding what the planet is trying to say in the chart before you even consider taking on aspects, I think.
Totally. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. So here's another question. When do you bring in fixed stars, asteroids, or hypothetical points?
If you're me, you never do.
But yet we've done an episode on the vertex, I believe, and the...
Well, that's not a hypothetical point.
Oh, okay.
So you've got hypothetical planets, which are entirely different. That's Uranian astrology.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Fixed stars, I don't use them.
Yeah.
You can if we've done an episode on that as well, but I don't use the fixed stars. And what was the third thing they wanted to bring in?
Asteroids.
Again, I don't use series or any of them.
Yeah.
You certainly, if you're going to use them all the time.
Yeah.
Or don't use them at all. That's what I would say with that.
Interesting. And I would actually have a different answer for that, just saying my personal thing. And that's if they are making any kind of, if any of them is in the first house, or if they're conjunct the ascendant or the midheaven, or if they're making a aspect to any of your personal planets, then they might be interesting.
Absolutely.
Especially with fixed stars. With asteroids, it's kind of like, use them, don't use them, whatever. Yeah. But with the fixed stars, I think the best interpretation for them is usually if they are conjunct something in your chart.
Exactly.
Because there's so many. I mean, just choose your favorite 10 and put it in.
If you're going to start with fixed stars, get the 4 fixed stars of the Persian fixed stars. Yeah. And if you're going to start with asteroids, put Ceres in first because it's a dwarf planet.
Yeah.
Give it the acknowledgement, work with that, and work it out.
I believe.
Yeah. But if you're someone who loves asteroids and works with them, they should be in all your charts.
Yeah.
You don't pick and choose this. You decide, I'm playing with this deck of cards, and there's 72 cards here.
Yeah.
If you want to add a joker, knock yourself out.
Yeah. And there are some astrologers who absolutely swear by that.
Yes. Yeah. But then you have the Hellenistic astrologers who won't go past Saturn.
Yeah.
So choose who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you as an astrologer?
Yeah.
What are you going to consider? And honestly, how much time have you got?
Right. And that actually, honestly, brings us to our next question, which is, as you're just beginning as an astrologer and you are kind of trying to carve out a niche, does your niche eventually find you? Does that special sauce that you bring to the table that makes you different from all the other astrologers find you? And if so, like maybe that takes a long time, but how do you decide what your focus is? Like, are you the asteroid guy, or are you,
the fixed star guy?
Yeah. Like, how did you decide? That's maybe a better question.
Okay. Well, just to go back to what was said earlier, you said maybe it takes a long time. I disagree.
Oh.
I think once you've interpreted your chart, you know what interests you.
Oh, interesting.
And you know what doesn't.
Yeah.
And the more you learn astrology, things will interest you and others will just leave you cold.
Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, as an astrology student, you have to learn all the stuff and you think, oh my God, I'll never use midpoints again because it doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
And I do think that your whichever is your strongest planet is going to dominate your life anyway and say, this is who I am. This is the type of thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's relationship astrology or financial astrology. I mean, I wouldn't do either of those.
Yeah.
I'm really more about inspiring my client to be the best they can be.
Yeah.
To show them there is another way.
Yeah. And that reflects because of your chart, because of who you are as a person. And then the people who that will resonate with they find you.
They find me because of my chart. So I'm not the astrologer for everyone, neither are you. Well, nobody is.
Yeah.
But it's like saying, well, there's 10 hairdressers in the city. Which one are you going to pick?
Right. Exactly.
And you choose one because you like them or you resonate with them or you make a connection with them.
Totally.
And it's the same with your chart. If your clients' planets do not connect to your chart by conjunctions, you're never going to get through to them anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Here's another question, a follow-up to that.
Okay.
Has your personal style as a consulting astrologer evolved over time? And did you start out teaching in a certain, consulting and reading charts in a certain way? And has that changed as you've matured as a
Yes, I think so. When I began, I was at my kitchen table, my dining room table, Saturday afternoons as a keen, eager beaver astrologer, and I'd invite every Tom, Dick, and Harry around for a free reading because I needed to practice.
Wow.
But I was so bogged down in doing exactly what the book had said and doing this and doing that and doing that. I missed the big picture. I was so buried in the detail. Chiron, semi-sextile, the South Node, and I taught that because I'd read it in a book.
Yeah.
And I'm not making a connection. And it was only later on that I realized that I need to get to the heart of people's charts to make a connection with them about what is their issue, why are they here today, and how can I help them. And the way I know how I can help them is I look at their chart and say, where does my sun fit in their chart? Which house is it in?
Yeah.
So if it's in the 9th house, they're going to think I'm a guru. If it's in the 1st house, they're going to like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But if it's in the 6th house, they're going to think, nah, it's not a good house.
Yeah.
Why would I want my son to be in the 6th
Too
house?
much work.
She's just droning on. It's all work and it's slightly boring because that's what the 6th house is.
Yeah.
Whereas if my son ends up in their 11th house, they think I'm their new best friend.
Nice,
right?
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. So you've got that as well. You've got the actual, the synastry between yourself and your client.
Yeah. Well, that brings up an interesting question. I mean, nowadays, obviously, someone would find us because someone
hopefully listen to the podcast.
Yeah, someone forwarded them the podcast, or they came across the dispository thing on YouTube, and we're like, hey, this looks like a great astrologer, and like finding out everything about you. But have you ever had a client come to you who seemed skeptical, or like they were kind of coming to you for the wrong, quote unquote, wrong reasons? Like with
yes,
how does that work?
Back in the day, you would get the scenario unfolded as the wife purchased an astrology reading for her husband, and she sent him along. So I was unaware of this situation till he arrived, and he sat there with his arms folded and said, you tell me, I'm not telling you anything.
Oh, no.
So I did.
Wow.
I did. I told him what his chart said, and I just kept talking and talking and talking. But he was not a receptive. He didn't want to be there. He had no interest in the astrology. He was just coming because his wife had bought him this kind of birthday gift as an astrology reading, and he was just
He probably bought her a manicure or whatever, and she bought... Who
knows what.
Wow.
But yes, you do get that. You get people who don't want to be there.
That's fascinating.
So, yeah. Tricky one, that.
Do you feel like he got anything out of it at all?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to think so, because, I did my best for his chart.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to be there.
Interesting.
I know.
Wow.
I know. And I thought at the time, well, why are you wasting my time and everybody's time?
Right.
But there he was. They paid their money. I had done all the chart preparation. And I gave him the reading, and he said, "Yeah, cheers, thanks a lot," and walked out. I thought, well, there you go. You can't help everybody.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you deal then when you're talking to someone, when you're interpreting someone's chart, and you see something that you know what it means, and you're like, uh-oh, red flag, and maybe they're not there because you've said in the past that a lot of people come to you when they're in a crisis.
Yes.
They've just had a breakup. They've been fired. They are graduating from college, and they don't know what they want to do with their lives. But a lot of people might be in a situation where they don't know what's coming. They're coming to you maybe before the crisis hits, and you see it coming. How do you deal with that? You
have to tell them.
Ooh, how do you tell them? Pretend I'm with you. I'm this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I'm about to graduate college, and you see something on the horizon.
Saturn's going over your midheaven. You're going to know about that. And some transits are more important than others.
You ask me what did I study? And I'm like, I studied economics. And you're looking at me going, I see pink hair. I don't. Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do you tell me?
So this is it, because you've got, and it maybe you've got a triple hit Saturn to your midheaven. That's really a life-changing direction. Things will not be the same after Saturn has crossed over there. It only happens once in 30 years, but it does happen to most people. And it can be, especially on a triple hit transit, it can be devastating. It's a time when people lose their job, lose their way, and lose their direction.
Yeah.
not through any fault of their own.
Right.
But life is kind of dealing them that hand
So
where, you've got Saturn coming across that midheaven. So you have to say, prepare yourself. I always like to say, stop spending money.
Ooh.
Because we always get to those, like, if you're going to get fired, you want to say, stop spending money now and bank, because you don't know what's coming.
Yes.
And of course, I don't know what's coming, but I can see that there's going to be a shift in the energy of how they're perceived in the world, their career, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Maybe they trained to be a doctor and they spent all that money on it and they don't want to do it when they come out of university.
Yeah.
And
that's not uncommon. I mean, I have to think that a lot of times you go into something because maybe your parents told you, like there's a legacy of doctors in the family or lawyers or whatever. They paid for college. You had to go.
And they spent the money.
By the time you get out, you're just like, I hate this. I hate blood. I hate delivering bad news. I don't want to be responsible.
And if you're the first person in your family going to college at all ever,
oh God,
and the village kind of chipped in to get you here, but you don't want it. The thing is, the crisis will still come.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is indicated by not every transit, but some transits are more impactful than others. Yeah.
Do you try to advise them to get out ahead of it?
My main advice is always
explore your other interests.
Bank the money, because you're going to need it.
Oh my God!
Because if there's a change that's coming, if there's a loss of a job, if there's X, Y, Z, and they're saying, "Oh, I'm thinking I'm going to buy a Ferrari," this is where I'm saying, because I'm more frugal, I'm saying, no, wait till past January and see the landscape then. And in the meantime, bank the money, because you can buy it at any time later. Yeah. Because when the chips are down in life, if they say they decide to sell your building to condos and you get 2 months' notice, you need money, you need ready money to make your next decision.
Who hasn't been there? Am I right?
Well, I know.
Vancouverites.
And if you lose your job in a market that's not, any market these days, you could be 6 months before you find a job. You need money to live on. So the way to get through life's crises is having cash in the bank.
Yeah.
And what do they say? They say 6 months salary, whatever it is. I like a round number. I like to say, if you can save 10,000, put that in your piggy bank. Yeah. I mean, this is what I say, but not everybody can do that. But you don't want to be on your last legs, in debt to the tune of $3,000 on consumer goods. You just bought a new barbecue. You don't need a new barbecue.
No.
And this is what I would rather say: save your money, because there's a shift in energy coming.
That's really.
And you can withstand things better with cash in the bank.
Yeah.
Like if the building burnt down and we had to go and stay in a hotel tonight, who's paying for that?
Right. Yeah.
She says living in a high rise,
With a very good sprinkler system, I hear.
Well, so they say. We haven't seen it in action yet.
No, thank goodness.
But the point being that would always be my practical
I like that
suggestion, that if you've got a cushion, you can deal with these problems, because the problems are going to come anyway.
Yeah.
But if you have just made a commitment to lease some car, or you bought a house you can't afford and then you get laid off, or the company goes bust, or God forbid they file for bankruptcy and suddenly you're on the street, after 8 years.
Right.
It happens.
So that addresses the practical considerations, the career considerations, and I love that advice. What if you see something relationship oriented?
Oh, and you do.
And they're just like, oh, I just got engaged.
And they say,
we're planning the wedding, and they want to talk about the husband to be.
And you just know he's having affairs because it's in the chart. Yes. Yes.
What do you?
You got a pussyfoot around that one.
Yeah. There's no putting money in the bank for that one.
Well, no. But the point is, again, when life throws you a problem, you're better off if you do have money. And that always has to be my answer, my initial answer, because generally my clients are not filthy rich. They're just regular folk trying to get by.
Right.
So to have a situation where suddenly, say if you have a breakup and suddenly you've got to go and move back to your mother's, and you're living at your mother's because you can't afford a deposit on a flat or an apartment,
or moving back in with 3 roommates and
horrors,
woman.
And you got a half a shelf in the fridge. I don't think so. But and again, it comes down to, if you've got a financial cushion, life is better, and that tends to be my suggestions for most of these problems.
Yeah.
Because they're going to come, the person will get through it, because the transit will pass.
Yeah.
But if you've got money to get you through it so that you've got money for a deposit, or you've got money to pay to tide you over while you're unemployed for 6 months, you can remain in your apartment. But if you can't make the rent, there's a big problem.
It's so funny. I mean, honestly, that's the kind of advice, and good for you giving that kind of advice, especially when you see a relationship thing. But honestly, this is not the kind of advice they're probably getting from their family or their friends. Their friends are like, oh, he's cute. Oh, he's got a good job. And the mom is like, oh, thank God you're finally getting married. Or, I'm being very stereotypical and very,
but
weird.
That's what happens.
But yeah, exactly. And you're just like, look out for yourself, girl. Make sure you've got a nest egg, whatever. I mean,
a nest egg. That's a good one.
Like the guy, whatever. Like
everybody needs a nest egg. Everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. You're not going to be like, well, have you tried plenty of fish? There's lots of no. Because anyone who's in a relationship, who's ever been in a relationship that ended suddenly,
well, everybody has.
Everyone's had some kind of breakup that they didn't see coming, or that they, if you'd asked them a year before,
or they die on you.
Everything's perfect. Oh God. Yeah.
I know. Again, you can withstand life's. Is it the vagaries of life?
Inevitabilities.
The inevitabilities. The Scorpio side of life comes at you, and it comes to everybody.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you've got money in the bank, you can get through it better. I don't know if that's really the sort of answer you were looking for, but practically, that has to be the answer to people who've got difficult transits coming up. Say you've got Pluto opposing your Sun, 5 hits, your life is going to change.
Yeah.
And it will not be the same as it was when you started.
Totally, yeah.
You lose your job, you lose your house, you lose your marriage. And then the dog dies.
Yeah.
And again, you've got the vet's bill. If you've got the money at hand, you can just deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And lick your wounds later, as we do, right?
Yeah.
I hope I'm not being too depressing.
No, not at all. It's life, right?
Yes.
And it's something that when you say people come to you when there's a crisis, usually, or that they're, you can see these things coming, you need to know, if you're aspiring to be an astrologer, how to deal with these things.
Yeah.
And that is a really practical way of coming at something that most people don't want to hear and don't want to
hear it.
Admit.
They don't want to hear it.
Even if they saw it in their own chart, the way you're clearly looking at it, they wouldn't want to acknowledge it. They would be like, oh, that just could mean, it's the death card, but it's reversed. I don't know.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, what, it's not going to happen to you?
Yeah, right, no.
Cinderella, come on. But practically, which is so much a Virgo word, which we seem to be using a lot this evening, is that if you've got, if you can put food on the table and your roof over your head, you've got time to emotionally process and psychologically process the drama of your life.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes,
do you have those basic things handled? And not to get, you were saying, like, is this too depressing? Well, let's go like one level darker, Scorpio rising here, and say, how do the people we see on the street end up on the street? Some of them, sure, they've mental illness. Some of them have, dire substance abuse issues. Some of them just ran out of friends and neighbors.
And
some
money.
Some of them lost a job. And wore out their welcome with their family and wore out their welcome with a few friends. Yeah. And next thing you know, paycheck to paycheck, and they're on the street.
Yeah.
And how do you avoid that happening? Because once that happens, it's a whole other level of digging yourself out so that you can even worry about things like, am I living my best life? Am I in the career that, fulfills my why? Or how do I find the love of my life? Like, no, it's like, how do you find the next meal? How do you find a shelter to sleep under?
And it all comes down to money.
Which
is unfortunate, but it does.
It's a fact of modern life, and probably a lot farther back than we care to admit, even. Back
in the day in the Industrial Revolution, a woman's got 13 kids and she's still working at the mill.
Yeah.
He's on the farm 12 hours a day.
Yeah. I mean, we pastoralized the back in the day, but honestly, it was never,
No.
There was always haves and have-nots, and it was always way more extreme actually than it is now. Yeah. We think that it's getting worse, like the imbalance of rich to poor, but it's actually getting better.
It is
globally.
Apparently, yes.
Globally,
yes.
I mean, in some of the first world countries, it fluctuates between a little better, a little worse, but globally, it's gotten way more equal, way more over the last 100.
But I do think this business of consumer spending, whatever that means to you,
oh God, yeah,
is creating a lot of issues. And that if you could bank your money, save more, and then give more, but save more.
And don't spend money on credit cards if you can avoid it.
Yeah, don't.
You don't need
anything. You don't need it. You've got what you need, right? Yeah. If you've got a roof and a meal, you're doing okay.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously, if you can afford luxuries, this isn't for you. But if you're struggling to make your rent and you are still feeling like you need to have that manicure or that pair of shoes or that whatever,
you don't.
You don't. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a situation with some people who come to me for an astrology reading and they say, "Oh, you're way too expensive. I can't afford that. Haven't you got something cheaper?" And I'm saying, well, you're driving a car, you've got, Netflix, you're living beyond your means anyway. And I offer complimentary readings for people who are unemployed. And there's a spot on my website, and you just send me an email and tell me you're unemployed, you've got no job, you've got no car, and you're living on your mother's couch. Yes, but you're not. You're driving a car, and you still want to argue about the price thing. So it's not for everybody. An astrology reading is not for everybody.
And everyone has to, whatever you think is your necessities, those are different for everybody. Yeah. Some people, it is a necessity to go to the nail salon and to have that manicure, and that's
but it's not necessary
luxury.
To have an astrology reading,
right? No, but I mean, it could be. That could be your necessity. That could be your little luxury.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right? Yeah. And or going to the pub, the local pub. This is my little luxury, and feeling like that's your second home or whatever. And some people might think, oh my God, adding up how much that what was that cost a week? Well, it doesn't matter because that's just
it's going to spend it anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
but if you can't afford it, that's another thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very careful about, and it comes back to this Maslow thing, which we need to address on a proper podcast episode at one stage. That once you've got to establish your foundation properly.
Yeah.
I mean, I say this like I've sorted everything out, but what I'm saying is, to my mind, that's the best thing to do, and this is what I tell my kids.
Yeah.
Before you even move on to phase 2.
Yeah.
And it's a proven thing, isn't it? That you've got to pay the rent. You've got to have a hot meal.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's the companionship, and I can't remember all the others. But like self-actualization it's that last one. It's the peak. It's the pinnacle. If you can focus on the self-actualization and feeling like you're living your best life and like you love your job and you're you're seen.
That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, but that's the pinnacle. You have to have those other things kind of in the basket before that's.
But by the same token, you don't need a new barbecue to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. There are other ways to go.
The stuff and the advertising on TV, they're saying, you need this, you need that, you need the next thing. Summer's coming, get a new picnic hamper or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frugality.
No, and also, I mean, it actually, one of the funny things that helps is like living in a place where apartments are notoriously small and storage is at a premium. And do you need this or that thing? It's like, well, do I have room for that in my cupboard? No.
Get rid of the junk.
Yeah. What I love, and you said of like this or that type of glasses for like when I have people over to make old fashions. Well,
matching.
Whatever.
No. Or if you go up to, the store and you think, I need a set of cooking pots and I need 17 with 15 lids. And I'm thinking, I used to work in a store that sold those, and really, you just need a frying pan, and you can do it all.
Yeah, actually, we have a very good pan, and a very good friend of mine gifted it to us. Yeah.
Well, this is it.
Yeah.
I think the thing is too. I think you've got to be happy with having enough.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the key. It's not easy.
No.
Because you're being bombarded.
Exactly, you're being bombarded. I mean, and there's a method to that. There are people whose jobs depend on selling you things you don't need, obviously, and manufacturing consent and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably smarter than that. You're probably elevated in your consuming habits and your thinking about being manipulated by the man or the algorithm. But it changes. It constantly changes. I mean, even my phone constantly tries to tell me like once a week, like, oh, you spent 20 minutes less on your phone than last week. And I'm like, I don't care. I didn't ask.
Why are you telling me this?
Why are you bugging me?
Yeah.
But for some people, that's a huge problem.
Oh.
Like, it's, oh God, I spent how many hours? And yeah, there are stupid little word games and puzzles on my phone, like as you do when you have some downtime. Like, oh, let's do this word puzzle or whatever. People do different things. At least I'm not spending, like, I'm not, micro gambling, or not that there's anything wrong with that unless you can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just every little thing wants you to spend money or spend your attention. And sometimes that's even worse, you know, if you have
I'd like my phone to tell me, oh, and we're only going to charge you $1 less this month. That's what I'd like to hear from them. But
really?
You don't hear that.
No, you do not. No, you do not.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can't remember what the question was now, but anyway.
No, but I think that was a good answer, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So here's a question from another listener.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work with retrograde planets in the natal chart? Like if you're, I mean, we all know about like Mercury retrograde in the world, but what if someone has Mercury retrograde in their chart or another retrograde planet? How do you interpret that?
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have retrograde planets in your chart? I do in my. You've got Jupiter, right?
I've got Jupiter. Yeah.
I have. Yeah.
I feel like any Jupiter is a good Jupiter.
Absolutely. So retrograde planets are planets that really are not. It's like. Like when a planet's direct, it's like you're walking down the street and you're going left, right, left, right, left, right to the end of the block.
Yeah.
But retrograde, you're walking backwards, but you can't see. So you're having to take it slowly, but you can do it.
Interesting.
So you're going back when you're retrograde, you're going back over ground you've already done.
Yeah.
Because you already went direct over that and something happened in that period. Yeah. You met Tom at the coffee shop.
Right.
You go backwards and you start thinking, is he the one? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And this and that. And you're going back over what has been done.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So if you've got a retrograde planet, it's not showing its best for you.
Yeah.
And it really probably never will.
Yeah.
But the energy is still there.
Yeah.
And if, say, for instance, you've got Jupiter retrograde in your chart, when Jupiter goes retrograde by transit every single year, as it does for 4 months, you will not be as badly affected by that as other people.
Right. And that's really what I've actually noticed, to be honest. Not with Jupiter per se, because, to be honest, I haven't noticed when Jupiter goes retrograde. I should start noticing that now that we've talked about this. But what I have noticed is that there are certain people who are really affected by Mercury retrograde, and I'm not one of them. No. In fact, when Mercury goes retrograde, I almost tend to feel like, okay, this is cool. You've
got a moment to breathe.
My detail orientation and my desire to go back and forth over things and to ruminate and try to make sure everything's perfect and double check everything. It clicks and it flows, and I can help other people. Mm-hmm. But I've noticed, and this is just hilarious that I've noticed this with a couple of Gemini friends who always seem to notice when it's retrograde. It's like, oh my God, everything's going wrong. My computer crashed for no reason, and this is happening, and that's happening, and flights are canceled, and is Mercury retrograde? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I guess it is.
Yes. Now you see, Mercury is exalted in Virgo. It's better placed in Virgo than it is in Gemini, although it rules both.
Yeah.
So Gemini gets hit harder.
Yeah. Interesting.
And generally you find that Virgo under Gemini is all about words, which is you, whereas Gemini under Virgo is all about numbers.
Oh, wow.
So, and of course you get negative numbers as well. So it's more in that sphere. Yeah. That's just by the way.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So, but anyway, if you've just got a general retrograde planet in your natal chart, it's going to be more moot than the others. It's not going to. The problem is if it's your chart ruler, you've got a retrograde chart ruler. You need to look to and do your planetary complex and see which is your strong planet and lean into that.
Yeah.
But we all, well, not everyone has a retrograde planet. It's usually retrograde 11. Planets are retrograde 11 months out of 12. Mm-hmm. Some people won't have a retrograde planet. If you're getting married, you certainly don't want retrograde Venus. That is not going to help anybody.
Yes.
And it happens.
Unless possibly you've already divorced that person and you're marrying them again.
Well, there you go. But, years when Venus is retrograde, which is not every year, it's every, 5 years out of 8. Right. You don't want to get married during that period because it's not going to make it. Not going to make it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Did that answer that, do you think?
I think so. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So here's a question. How does the chart show karmic or past life themes? And where do you look for that? Is it the South Node? Is it the 12th house? Things like that.
It's generally going to be your South Node because that shows where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Therefore, your previous lives.
Yeah.
So you would look at the South Node You'd look at it by house and by sign and do its complex.
Yeah.
And any aspects being made to that south node are going to give an indication of these past lives.
Right. And since the south node is opposite the north node, if you're using astrology software that only show the north node, you can just assume you can draw it in. It's the exact opposite. And any aspects that are made to the south node will also be made to the north node, like something. If you have a trine, it'll be sextile the other one, unless it's out of orb.
Not necessarily, because the orb's different.
It could be out of orb,
So let's put it this way. If you've got a planet conjoined your south node, that is a huge indicator.
Yes.
That is a huge indicator of past lives.
Yes.
In the nature of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So say you've got, I don't know, Neptune conjoin your south node, that's going to be the nature of your past lives, that it was elusive and all the rest of it.
Yeah, or Saturn conjunct.
Well, any of the planets conjoined the south node are going to show the nature of your past lives, that it was rigid, that you were limited, that maybe things were frugal, I don't know, and you came from, dare I say it, a place of want. You know? The south node particularly is the point that shows your past lives.
Yeah, totally.
I wouldn't necessarily look at the 12th house, or what was the other one you suggested?
This person has said either the south node, the 12th house, or retrograde planets.
No, I wouldn't go with retrograde. Definitely look at the south node.
Yeah. Totally.
And I would even question, because I don't do this myself, I'm not into this
past
lives. What's the use of it? People want help today and here and now.
Yeah, so, and in that sense, the south node is actually kind of great because it's opposite the north node, which is speaking about the future and about your aspiration. And it's frequently something where you're not comfortable with. So if you're looking at the south node, north node complex, you're typically, and everyone I've talked to feels kind of the same way about their north node. It's like, I don't resonate with that at all. I have the north node in Capricorn, of all things. My mother, for example, has north node in Pisces, and she's always like, Pisces, what? What is this? So yeah, it's frequently something where you don't feel comfortable, but you're moving towards that, or you're supposed to be, as your destiny, your fulfillment of whatever that past life complex was. And yeah.
But the irony in your chart is that with the Saturn conjoined the south node, it's actually the ruler of that north node. So the future may also, I don't want to say it's going to be bleak or frugal, but that is the attitude you're taking with you forward. So so you need to look at other aspects.
Practical, not
practical. Okay, so we're going to be practical about life.
Yeah.
But your future is going to look at the aspects to that north node.
Yeah.
And go from there. So that's, I don't know what they are, but sitting here looking at it.
Yeah, I think I have a trine and I have a square.
Okay, well, when you, that's, more the future. But past lives, to me, past lives is, gosh, how much time do we have?
Right.
It doesn't really matter what they say. You were an Egyptian princess. You were, I don't know, on the River Jordan.
A disgraced priest and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Does it help you get through tomorrow? I don't know. To me, I never do evolutionary. And I would suggest you go to an evolutionary astrologer for that.
Exactly, yeah. But it is interesting because we can concoct a story, and does that story tell you something? Sure, yeah.
What you're bringing with you, attitudes and prejudices that you're bringing forward
and
that need to be faced.
Absolutely, and if that story resonates with you, if the story that is told or concocted or spun up somehow about that south node, if that resonates with you, then it's meaningful.
Yes,
like that's the whole beauty of astrology in a nutshell, is that if you find resonance in that metaphor, whatever that beautiful story is, whatever that beautiful knit together tale of past hardship or past loss or past greatness and fallen glory or whatever it is, if that speaks to you, then that teaches you something about who you are trying to be in this life or in your future, and that is important. That's what makes it important. Yeah.
It's a delicate path to walk, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Let's talk about transits and progressions.
Yes.
So at any given time, transits and progressions, you'll have multiple of them happening.
Correct.
Many of them, probably, depending on how you use the orbs and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So how do you prioritize them when you're doing a chart for someone, or a consultation rather, and you're telling someone, here's what's coming up for you? How do you prioritize what those transits and progressions are? Because I've seen those graphs where it's like all the waves and you're like, what
the graphic ephemeris.
Insane. Yes. Yeah. The graphic ephemeris is still, to me, and I've been 20 years into this, mind blowing. So how do you actually focus in on how do you prioritize those?
So the most important things usually are the 3 outer planet transits.
Got it.
So that's Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, because they will do at least a 3-hit.
Yeah.
And Pluto will probably do a 5-hit transit to any point in your chart.
And it will probably last like 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Uranus and
transits are
Neptune.
not to be trifled with.
Yeah, Uranus and Neptune 1 year, Pluto at least 2 years,
Yeah.
and they are life-changing transits. They are important.
Yes. Yeah.
They're more important if they are actually transiting a personal planet, Sun, Mercury, Moon, Venus, Mars.
Yeah.
Then things are going to change for you for sure.
Yeah.
So they are, I would say, the most important backdrop to your whole what's going on.
Yeah. I would add ascendant midheaven.
Okay, as you wish.
Speaking of
Add that
experience. Yeah.
So, and also from that point to any outer planets, and even now Jupiter and Saturn changing house. So if Saturn's going from your, from your 6th to your 7th, you're going to notice it. If it goes from your 7th to your 8th, you're going to notice it. It's going to be changing house for you. And of course, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto spend years in these houses.
Exactly.
But the important year is the year it enters the house.
Yes.
So, so again, if Saturn's crossing your midheaven,
Right.
it's been in your 9th house, you've been studying like a beaver,
Yes.
on whatever it is,
Yeah.
and suddenly you think, I'm going to get a career as an XYZ.
Yeah. And with those retrograde conjunctions, with my Saturn return, for example, I literally felt it on the day.
Yes.
On the day. And then it got easier and it gets better, quote unquote. Yes.
It gets better once it's moved out of orb.
Yeah. But that double whammy thing, usually it will be worse the first time,
Yes.
a little better the next
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you see you've got an outer planet transit coming up, you need to honestly prepare yourself for it and really work out how could this go. And you want to lean into the positive aspects of whatever's going to be suggested by that.
I would think hard aspects too, much more obviously than. So if you're having like a Pluto square to your sun happening at the same time as like Neptune trine, whatever.
Forget Neptune. Pluto's the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's how you prioritize.
It's overriding. It's overriding.
Yeah.
It's going to say, okay, it's the end of it. You've broken your leg. You've lost your job.
We could safely say this is the one time we do focus on the negative.
Yes.
Is when it comes to transits and progressions.
Yes.
We go hard transits and we go outer planets first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. 100%.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And last question.
Oh.
Final question.
Woohoo.
How do you use out of sign aspect?
The fact that they're out of sign doesn't bother me at all.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Because the energy, what's actually happening is the 2 planets are near each other, say if they're a conjunction in the sky, they're close enough.
I mean, conjunction for sure. Yeah. Do you think an out of sign square has less power?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But is it applying or separating? Which planet's in its own dignity? You need to make these determinations as well, right?
So it's like you've asked a complicated question and we up the ante-complication one.
Well, you do, because you have to say, what was the example there? We've got a sun square moon.
Yeah. Well, let's say Mars square.
Okay.
Let's say Saturn square Mars.
So Mars square Saturn. So, Mars, is it applying? While it's applying to the square, it's going to be more challenging and all the rest of it. This is now the sprint. This is the endurance or the marathon. And you want to say, well, which sign is Mars in? Is it effective?
Right.
Or is Saturn going to hold its ground?
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Which one is the more powerful planet?
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
And if either of those planets are your chart ruler, that planet is likely to be more dominant for you.
Right.
Whereas if it's just a transit of Mars squaring Saturn, we've all got it. But if it's not connecting to your chart, it won't affect you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like eclipses. If there's an eclipse, a lunar eclipse next week, and it's not conjoining anything, you can kiss it goodbye. It's not going to affect you. Mm-hmm. But it will affect people who's got planets there.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I know.
Yeah.
What was the question, or was that the question? Did we answer that?
Yeah, out of sign aspects.
Yeah, out of sign. So an out of sign aspect of, say, there's a conjunction on the cusp between Aries and Taurus. Mm-hmm. It's still a conjunction.
Yeah.
They're still standing cheek by jowl.
I would say conjunctions are definitely the exception to the rule there. It's like, regardless, it's conjunction.
Yeah, but, again, out of sign, it doesn't bother me. There's still, the aspect is there. Yeah. The tension is still there, right? Yeah.
Totally. It's like a magnet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you're joined at the hip, with these aspects.
Yeah.
They're hard baked in your chart if they're in your natal chart.
Yeah. That's an excellent point. Excellent. I mean, when it comes to transits and progression, well, more transits than progressions, they're going to hit both. If you've got planets that are in aspect in your natal chart, when those transits come through, they're going to hit both in one way or another.
Yes. Well, it'll conjoin this and square that, and then it'll go around and do the opposite.
Exactly.
So the theme continues.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with what sign they're in.
Yeah. That's why they say, she has a type. Yes, because she keeps picking the same guy because it's in the chart.
Yeah, interesting.
And it's the same thing. We have the same furniture. You can wear the same clothes. It's in your chart.
Yeah. I love that. We'll have to talk about types one day.
Yeah. Okay, so we have had the questions for our 175th episode.
Yes.
I mean, how many weeks is this? We've broken the 2.5 year mark by now.
What is the gift for a 175th
anniversary?
I don't even know. I mean,
I have no idea. But when we get to our bicentennial, which is only 25 episodes away, we'll have to do something really special then.
Absolutely.
We might just have a glass of wine or something, or go out to dinner.
I think we should.
Something.
100%.
Anyway, so we have been answering questions from listeners just like you. They've sent them in. You can send us a text if you click on if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can click on the first link and send a text directly to us with questions. You can put your questions in the YouTube comments on the videos, or you can just email us at starzology@gmail.com with your questions, and we'll be answering them in our bicentennial 200th episode, which will be coming up next. But still, we are here at the 175th episode. So if you have found value in this episode, please do consider sharing it with anybody who'd be interested. Make sure you're getting our newsletter, and you can sign up for that at starzology.com/newsletter. Additionally, make sure that you're getting Arwynne's newsletter, and you can find her at...
I'm at mspink.net. That's mspink.net. And I'm sending out my newsletter every Saturday. And I'm blogging about a variety of topics, including goddesses and movies and books and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, it's a good read. Yeah.
Thanks.
So, Arwynne, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. This has been great.
And thank you so much to our listeners, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.